At the holiday party, my CEO cut me as co-founder on stage. Everyone laughed until I handed her a folder with receipts. Fraud, stolen funds, fake signatures. She screamed. My head of strategy looked ready to faint. I just walked out. The clinking of glasses and soft jazz filled the rooftop ballroom. Everything shimmered in gold and silver. Holiday cheer, startup style, all glitter and networking. I stood near the champagne tower, sipping soda in a plastic flute. Not because I don't drink, but because I knew I'd need my full wits about me tonight. Something felt off. The leadership team had been cagey for weeks. Whispers, private meetings. Even the group Slack had gone strangely quiet. Melissa clinked her glass at the mic. That fake PR smile frozen on her face. Everyone, she said, her voice sharp under the sweetness. I just want to take a moment and thank you all for an amazing year. Polite applause. People glanced up from tiny plates of scallops and truffle fries. As many of you know, startups evolve. Teams grow, roles shift. And tonight, we want to celebrate a new chapter. Jacob stood behind her, hands folded. No expression. Just blank. My stomach dropped. Melissa pulled a folded sheet from her pocket. Paper. Not notes, a script. After thoughtful consideration and a unanimous leadership vote, she said, scanning the paper, we've decided that effective immediately, protagonist's name will no longer be holding the title of co-founder. Scattered laughs. A few confused claps. Someone near the back called out, wait, is this a bit? It wasn't. She wasn't smiling anymore. People turned to look at me. A few tried to read my face, expecting rage or denial. But I'd rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. I didn't flinch. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a sealed manila envelope. Then I guess you won't need this, I said calmly, holding it out. Melissa took it, smug like she'd just won something. She opened it right there at the mic, like it was another opportunity for theatrics. But when she saw the first page, her expression changed. Her lips parted, then twisted. Her hand shook as she flipped to the next page. And then, she screamed. Not a small yelp, a full-throated, caught in the throat, courtroom meltdown kind of scream. Her glass hit the floor. People froze. Jacob rushed over. What the hell is this? He asked, grabbing the papers from her hand. Guests backed away. Phones started rising. I stood still, hands in my pockets. That folder, I said, contains every contract you signed without board approval. Every fund transfer you made to that shell company in Palo Alto. Every time you mocked me in Slack thinking I didn't see it. Melissa's face had gone white. Jacob's eyes widened as he scanned the pages. You said this was handled, he hissed to her. It was supposed to be buried, she choked out. I turned to the room. I might not be a co-founder anymore, I said, voice steady, but I was the one who kept this company alive while everyone else played house with other people's money. No one clapped now. Not a soul moved. Melissa stumbled off the mic, still clutching the folder. And I just stepped back, letting the walls start to close in on them. It started in a garage. Not metaphorically, an actual garage. We had folding tables, loaner laptops, and a whiteboard that wouldn't hang straight no matter how much duct tape we threw at it. Back then, it was just me, Melissa, and Jacob. Melissa had the vision. Jacob had the charm. And me? I made things work. I filed the LLC paperwork. Opened the business account. Learned QuickBooks in a weekend. Nobody asked me to, it just needed to be done. We called ourselves co-founders. Equal partners. Ride or die. But even in those early days, I could feel the difference in how they treated me. Melissa was always front and center during pitches. Jacob was the one investors wanted to have coffee with. I was the one making sure the coffee got delivered on time. Still, it worked. We grew. I didn't care about the spotlight. I cared about staying alive. About paying vendors. About keeping the books clean. When we finally landed our first seed check, they popped champagne. I built a budget spreadsheet before the cork hit the floor. As the team expanded, so did our roles. Melissa became CEO. Jacob slid into the head of strategy title. And I just kept doing what needed doing. Operations, legal, HR, compliance, finance, all of it quietly funneled through me. I was the one who got the startup through its first tax season without a hitch. I negotiated our first office lease, fixed the copier when it jammed, and wrote the internal wiki at night while they celebrated a culture win over drinks. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself they were just playing to their strengths. They were the face. I was the spine. But as the company scaled, the tone shifted. I'd walk into a Monday meeting and find the agenda had already been set, without me. Marketing campaigns I hadn't approved were live. Partnership deals were inked before I even saw a draft. I once showed up to a board meeting and found my name removed from the slide deck. We didn't have time to run it by everyone, Melissa had said, flipping through the presentation. Don't take it personally. I tried to tell myself it wasn't personal, that maybe I was imagining it. But the pattern was impossible to ignore. Invitations to investor dinners stopped coming. When journalists interviewed the founding team, it was always just Melissa and Jacob. My title stayed the same on paper, co-founder and COO, but it started to feel more honorary than real. They still needed me, though. That was clear. Every time something broke, I was the one they called. When payroll almost bounced, I was the one who fixed it. When a contract needed redlining at midnight, it was my laptop lighting up the kitchen table. But they didn't say thank you anymore. They just assumed I'd be there. And for a long time, I was. It wasn't just my time they took. It was my money, too. Melissa once pitched to 3 VCs in 2 weeks and came back with nothing but tote bags and polite rejection emails. They're not getting the vision, she said, brushing it off. Meanwhile, we had 12 days of payroll left and no backup plan. So I sold stock. Not options, actual shares. My personal holdings. Quietly. No drama. Just logged into my brokerage account, sold enough to buy us another month, and moved on. I didn't tell them. They would have just said thank you and forgotten by lunch. Or worse, assumed it was my job. When Jacob maxed out the company card on client entertainment, dinners, golf trips, hotel upgrades, I swallowed the charges and cut a check from my personal account. I told myself it was for the good of the company. That explaining it would only make things messier. I paid the legal retainer when we got our first cease and desist. I paid out of pocket to upgrade our insurance when we crossed the employee threshold and no one else even noticed. When our first office rent doubled unexpectedly, I floated the difference for 3 months until someone in finance caught up. Nobody ever asked where the money came from. They started calling me Ops Mule behind my back. I found it in a Slack screenshot later, buried in a private channel I wasn't supposed to see. Melissa had posted it during an offsite. Let the Ops Mule carry it, LOL, followed by a gif of a donkey dragging a cart. I stared at the message for a long time, not angry, just hollow. Like someone had reached inside and knocked something loose I hadn't realized was fragile. The worst part? They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. There were jokes in team meetings about how I was the internal janitor, cleaning up messes. Jacob once raised a toast at a company happy hour and said, "To the invisible hands that make the magic happen." Everyone laughed. I laughed, too. It was easier than explaining why it stung. Melissa kept promising reimbursements. Just send the receipts, she'd say with that too wide smile. I did. Over and over. Nothing ever came back. After a while, I stopped bothering. It felt pathetic. But I stayed. I kept pushing through every setback, every slight. Not because I didn't know better. I did. But because I still believed in what we were building. Or maybe because walking away would have meant admitting how badly I'd been used. I kept waiting for them to see it. To notice the strain in my voice, the late-night Slack messages, the numbers I never let slip. I thought if I just worked a little harder, stayed a little quieter, they'd eventually say, "We couldn't have done this without you." But they never did. They just kept taking. The ask came on a Wednesday afternoon. Melissa popped into my office unannounced, holding 2 green smoothies and a folder. "Got a quick favor," she said like it was nothing. "Just need your signature on this." I took the folder and skimmed the top page. Convertible notes. Another round. But this one wasn't like the others. The investor names were unfamiliar. The valuation was weirdly inflated. And the company listed? Not ours. "This isn't for us," I said, flipping to the second page. "This is for, what is this? Vela Wellness." Melissa didn't flinch. "It's a side venture I'm incubating. Still early, but strategic. Lifestyle brand. Huge upside." I blinked. "You want me to co-sign a funding instrument for a company I don't own? Under our corporate structure?" She waved her hand like I was being tedious. "It's all intertwined. Trust me, it's good for both orgs. And you're still technically on the board." "No," I said, cutting her off. Melissa paused, mid-sip of her smoothie. "Sorry. I'm not signing this," I said. "And if this brand is yours, then fund it yourself. Don't use our investors, our legal shell, or my name." The smile drained from her face. She nodded slowly, like she was filing the moment away. "Okay," she said. "Noted." The next day, I couldn't access our cloud drive. My calendar wiped. My Slack login failed. I tried calling IT, no answer. Tried reaching out to Jacob, he was traveling. Then came the whispers. I walked past the kitchen and 2 junior PMs went quiet. Another one gave me a sympathetic look in the hallway, but didn't stop walking. I knew what this was. The gossip machine had been activated. He's burned out. He's stepping down soon, just hasn't said it out loud yet. They're restructuring. He's technically still co-founder, but not really. The narrative was already being shaped. Quietly. Strategically. I wasn't being fired. I was choosing to fade away. That's when I started collecting things. Emails. Contracts. Logs. Screenshots. Anything that painted the real picture. I went back years. Tracked the missing reimbursements. The payments I made personally. The equity transfers. The documents Melissa had signed with my name. At night, I'd sit at my kitchen table with 2 laptops open and a stack of notebooks beside me. Not angry. Just methodical. focused. They thought I'd walk away quietly. They forgot I kept everything. Melissa never expected me to bring a folder. Not a literal one, anyway. Not something physical. Not something real. But there it was, a manila folder, thick and sealed. When I handed it to her at the gala, I watched her face shift from smug to confused to horrified in under 30 seconds. She wasn't reading a resignation. She was reading a reckoning. Inside were 9 documents, carefully ordered. Page 1. A contract Melissa signed 6 months earlier with its strategic partner, one of her wellness brand vendors. She used our company letterhead and my digital signature. I never saw it. The agreement committed us to $40,000 in recurring payments. No board approval. No internal documentation. Page 2. A ledger of financial transfers, outgoing payments to a Shell LLC that I traced back to a WeWork mailbox registered under her maiden name. Total outflow, $137,500. Labeled as influencer partnerships. No deliverables attached. Pages 3 to 5, Slack screenshots. Messages between Melissa and Jacob from their private channel, full of snide remarks. He's like a ghost that does taxes. We should just prop him up for funding optics. He's allergic to ambition, LOL. The ops mule rides again. Jacob had even added a donkey emoji at one point. Very on brand. Page 6. A full audit log showing every financial contribution I'd made to keep the company afloat. Payroll advances, office deposits, legal fees. Total amount, $122,890 of my own money. Not reimbursed. Never even acknowledged. I had receipts. I had timestamps. I even included the wire confirmations. Page 7. An internal email chain about board meeting exclusions. Jacob had written, "Let's keep him looped out for now, less friction. We'll loop him in when it's finalized." Melissa replied, "Yup. Keep it. Need to know. He's got enough to stress over." Page 8. A memo Melissa sent to our lead investors, painting me as emotionally inconsistent and increasingly disengaged. She implied I might need time away for mental health reasons, justifying the sudden shift in my responsibilities. That was the one that hit hardest. They weren't just taking me out of the company. They were erasing me, rewriting the story so I wouldn't be missed. Or believed. Page 9. A side-by-side timeline. My financial inputs on one side. Their private messages and decisions on the other. It was undeniable. When Jacob took the folder from Melissa's shaking hands and flipped through the pages, he didn't speak. His jaw tightened. He scanned the receipts, the dates, the tone of the messages. He looked up at her like he'd just found out he was collateral damage. And that was the moment I knew. She hadn't told him everything. He thought they were in it together. But she'd been setting him up, too, just more subtly. I didn't have to say a word. I let the folder talk. And it spoke loud enough for the whole room to hear. Jacob's voice cracked the silence. "You told me they approved this," he shouted, shaking the folder as loose pages fluttered to the floor. "You said we were covered." Melissa didn't answer right away. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted around like she was searching for a script that no longer existed. "This is out of context," she said finally, voice trembling but still clinging to control. "He's twisting things." "Oh, come on," Jacob cut in. "These are wire transfers, Melissa. These are your Slack messages. This is your signature." Whispers spread across the ballroom like a virus. Investors, employees, plus ones who had no idea they were about to witness the company's PR disaster unfold in real time. A marketing associate leaned toward his partner and whispered, "This is real, right?" His partner just nodded, stunned. I stood off to the side, hands in my pockets, saying nothing. I didn't need to. Everything I wanted them to know was already in that folder. Melissa turned toward the crowd. Her smile was shaky now, brittle around the edges. "Listen," she said, holding up both hands. "Some of this is being taken out of context. This is a mischaracterization. He was never really a team player. Everyone knows that." But the room didn't nod. The room didn't laugh politely. The room was done. I could see it in their eyes. The shift. People were backing away from her physically, emotionally, reputationally. That kind of public unraveling? You don't walk it back with charm and spin. Not when you're holding a folder full of fraud in front of your investors. I stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. I took out a second envelope from my coat and placed it gently on the table near the mic. "I've signed and notarized my resignation," I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Effective immediately, I'm stepping down from all titles and revoking power of attorney over any corporate matters." Melissa flinched. "And," I continued, "I'm formally withdrawing all intellectual property filings under my name, including the original stack architecture and workflow schema. You'll need to refile without my authorization." Someone near the front gasped. An investor in a velvet blazer leaned toward another and whispered something urgent. Jacob's face went pale. "You can't do that," Melissa said, her voice shrill now. "You can't just walk away like that." "I can," I replied, "and I just did." She stepped toward me, eyes wild. "This is sabotage." "No," I said, locking eyes with her. This is accountability. With that, I turned, walked past the stunned guests, past the champagne tower, past the glittering startup signage and rented optimism. I didn't slam the door on my way out. I didn't need to. The silence behind me was loud enough. The silence was immediate. No texts. No calls. No, we need to talk. Just nothing. And for a while, that was the best part. I spent the first 2 days doing nothing. No inbox. No Slack. No calendar full of meetings I wasn't invited to anyway. Just coffee, sleep, and walking around my neighborhood without a phone buzzing in my pocket. On the third day, the silence broke. First came the texts. Jacob, look, I didn't know half of that stuff. I thought we were on the same page. Melissa, you overreacted. We could have fixed this. Unknown number. Think of the company. Don't let one moment ruin everything. Then the voicemails. My favorite was from Melissa. Her voice calm, almost rehearsed. We're still partners in spirit. Let's not burn the house down when we both helped build it. I deleted it without listening to the end. Then came the guilt bombs. Melissa again. You know the board needs context. Just explain what happened. You don't have to be so dramatic. Jacob, at least help us with the transition. Investors are freaking out. Melissa again. This isn't just about you. I blocked them all. No dramatic speech. No final warning. Just silence. That silence was mine now, and I intended to keep it. I slept better than I had in years. No Slack notifications at 3 a.m. No emails demanding updates on things I was never given authority to lead. No more pretending to be part of a team that had already voted me out before they said it out loud. Then, a week later, Jacob texted me again from a new number. You were right. She used us both. I'm stepping down. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. A few days after that, I got an email from an angel investor I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Heard what happened. If you're thinking about what's next, let's talk. Then another. I always thought you were the adult in the room. Whatever you build next, I want in. Support. Quiet. Steady. The kind I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Funny how people only speak up once the damage is visible. But I wasn't bitter. I was done. I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I wasn't clarifying, correcting, or cleaning up anyone's mess. Let them spin their stories. Let them scramble. Me? I was finally free. 3 months later, I lived in a different city. Not a big move, just far enough that nobody knew my name when I ordered coffee. No awkward run-ins with ex-employees. No reminders of boardrooms that used to feel like home and then didn't. I rented a small apartment with a view of a park and zero startup vibes. No company logos on the fridge. No dry erase roadmaps. Just shelves, books, and peace. I launched a solo consultancy. Quietly. No press, no LinkedIn announcement. Just a single-page website and a referral from an old developer I once fought for during layoffs. The work came in fast. Turns out when you've spent years fixing everyone else's mess, people start lining up when you finally decide to get paid for it. I picked my own clients. I set my own hours. I didn't beg anyone to be included anymore. I built rooms where I didn't need permission to exist. And I finally, signed up for therapy. My therapist was a woman named Tessa, mid-40s, calm in a way that made silence feel like a conversation. The first thing she asked was, "What do you want from this?" I didn't say peace. That felt too vague. I said, "I want to stop apologizing for taking up space." She nodded, like that made perfect sense. We talked about boundaries, about why I kept giving when nobody ever gave back, about the part of me that thought if I just stayed useful, I'd eventually be seen. Turns out, some patterns don't start in boardrooms. They start in childhood. Bit by bit, I got better at saying no. Not in a big dramatic way. Just with clarity. No justifications. No guilt. Old colleagues started reaching out. Some with real curiosity. Others just fishing for gossip. But a few, the good ones, said things I didn't expect. I always wondered how you lasted that long. We knew you held it together behind the scenes. I never said it, but I looked up to you. That kind of quiet respect? I'd take it over applause any day. Then one morning, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in careful loops. It was from Melissa. "We'll always be co-founders in spirit," it read. I didn't even finish reading the rest. I walked out to the balcony, held the letter over the ashtray I now use for mail I didn't want to keep, and burned it. No anger. No ceremony. Just letting it go. Later that week, I met a friend for lunch, someone I hadn't seen since our garage days. We laughed like people who remembered when success meant a shared coffee pot and working Wi-Fi. "You seem lighter," they said. I smiled. I was. It was a chilly Sunday morning when the message came in. I was out by the lake, walking with a to-go coffee in hand, breath fogging in the crisp air. No notifications buzzing, no one expecting a response within 5 minutes. Just the sound of water and gravel under my boots. The phone vibrated once in my coat pocket. A DM from someone I didn't recognize. "Hey, Not sure if this is weird, but I heard your story. I left my co-founders last month. Walked away from the company I helped build. People called me crazy. Just wanted to say, thanks. Reading about what you did made it feel a little less lonely. I read it twice. There was no punchline. No ask. Just quiet recognition from someone who understood. I didn't reply right away. I just stared out at the lake, the water still and smooth like glass. A few ducks floated by, unbothered by anything. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't need a crowd to witness the change. I didn't need revenge or a mic drop moment. That had already happened. And even if most people forgot it by now, it didn't matter. Because I hadn't just survived it. I'd stepped out of it. Clean. I'd rebuild a life not just without them, but beyond them. Later that day, I replied to the message. You're not crazy. You're early. Keep going. Then I turned my phone off. I didn't need to chase anything anymore. No need to prove I was right. No need to remind anyone who I was or what I'd done. I had clients who respected me, friends who saw me. And my story? It had found its way out into the world on its own. Not because I shouted it, but because it was real. I took the long way home, walking slow. Cold wind on my face, nothing in my ears, no pings or alarms. Just stillness. And for the first time, I didn't feel empty or angry or vindicated. I just felt full.